Okay, I am recording now.
Okay.
All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome again to my audiovisual channel. My name is Gabriela Handal, a draftsman and your host for this podcast, A Conversation About Art. With these conversations, I'm doing long-term research on the meaning of art and beauty through conversations with colleagues in different artistic fields. Today, I bring you episode 118 with artist Scott Garder. If you enjoy this video, please like, share, comment, subscribe, all the videos, because these actions are very helpful. You can help even further by checking out the links in the description. So, Scott, welcome again to A Conversation About Art. You are episode 118. Please tell
Hello.
our listeners and viewers who you are and what you do.
Cool. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and glad
Of
we
course.
finally agreed on a time to make this happen. Sorry, I had to get rescheduled a couple times.
No problem.
But my name's Scott. I'm an artist and currently a full-time student studying drawing and painting here in New York at the Grand Central Atelier. My focus is mainly on portraiture. I'm learning to paint right now. Um, what else? I was a graphic designer for like almost 10 years before
Uh-huh.
quitting that and coming to New York to study full time. So, yeah, that's my background.
Okay. Why did you switch from graphic design to fine art?
Yeah, man, I often ask myself that question. Um, I think I really just wanted to try to be my own boss, and I really loved being a designer. I truly, it was a great way to like work in the visual arts and be expressive and be visual, and have like career stability too. But eventually, I'm kind of a type A person, and I wanted to have full creative control over what I make.
Okay.
And as a designer, you're working with clients and you're working with coworkers who always are collaborating with you. And I'm not saying that collaboration is a bad thing, but yeah, I just really was like, man, I've got one life. I kind of want to like go see if I can be an artist and be my own boss and maybe find a way to make money making the art that I want to make, and like really expressing myself. So I went back and forth for a long time. Like I studied art when I was a designer. I was studying art on my own in my free time for like about 4 years. Around 2018, I started to like try to learn to draw like the old masters did, just in my free time. And yeah, eventually I landed a job in Los Angeles that ended up paying me really well, and I was able to save a lot of money. And the stars kind of aligned around 2020 when COVID hit, when I got that job, and I just started saving money like a madman, and was still living like I was broke.
Yeah.
And finally it was just like, I think I'm just gonna do it. Like I'm saving money. I can sell my car, which was paid off at the time, so I sold that and just like saved like my life savings really, and just decided like, let's go do it and see what happens. So I came to New York in September of 2022 and did my first year at GCA at the Grand Central Atelier. I recently just finished my second year.
Okay. Okay. Okay, well, that's cool. That's really cool. Okay, so the because I have pending. I mean, I have talked to like a handful of people who are still do graphic design as kind of like the bread and butter and stuff, but they kind of have both going on together still. And you kind of, I have pending talking to somebody who like still does it. But anyway, the thing is that you have done it. You have a lot of experience. And other than what I guess is the obvious, because there's a lot of overlap, of course, between especially based on your description, overlap between graphic design and, for example, doing commissioned portraits. Because, like you were saying, it's basically it's kind of a collaboration in the sense that there's somebody that wants to see something specific, and you're the medium by which they will be able to see what they want to see, like the image, like the portrait of their whoever it is. The graphic designer wants the logo with these colors, like this type of stuff. So what I mean, can you talk besides the obvious things, I guess, because I'm aware that it's kind of obvious that graphic design and fine art are different, but would you elaborate on the difference between the two?
Sure, yeah. Man, there is a lot of overlap. I noticed like right away when I started kind of like diving into fine art itself that a lot of the rules of what makes a nice like page layout in graphic design kind of applies compositionally to fine art as well.
Okay.
Like there's tricks and compositional rules that you can use in like a page layout or a website or whatever, or an ad, to like guide the viewer's eye that old masters had been employing, hundreds of years ago, because they understood composition and movement throughout an image.
Okay. Would you give me an example of that, please?
I guess the most simple one would be like the rule of thirds. You know, when you're creating an image, you create invisible thirds on the page, and around where those thirds intersect is like good places to maybe put focal points on a page.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is something I learned in design school when I went to college for that, and it's also something that applies for like I guess painting as well.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, just little things like that. I noticed that there's kind of overlap, and also like the idea of color or value. Like if creating a pleasant image in a painting, you don't want all your values to be real dark and real bright. Like you kind of want nuance, and it's the same thing for design. Like it's the exact same thing. A really amateur painting will have like really saturated color and really darks and a lot of lights.
Yes, yes.
And I guess an amateur layout in design would be the same thing. Like it's just kind of overwhelming the viewer. So it is interesting. There is quite a bit of overlap. Right now, I'm just basically like studying the human form in space. So I'm not really creating images. I'm just like drawing and painting naked people all day, which is a really awesome thing too.
Yes.
But anyway, yeah, just things like that. So I think there's quite a bit of overlap.
Yeah.
And then I guess the differences, man, I don't know. The difference I notice is I stay much more engaged with fine art. Like I'm someone with OCD and diagnosed with ADD when I was really young. And so like, for some reason, this fine art and drawing and painting, it just holds my attention better than most things. Even design, which I really, really loved. So I just like it a lot more. Yeah, I've always had a thing for really beautiful representational art, even when I was a little kid. So it just feels right for me to be here trying to do this.
Okay. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about your transition from being a full-time graphic designer to currently an art student.
Sure.
Because I'm sure you know that there's not that much focus on business and organization when it comes to fine art. We know that we should do it, that we should know these things, but I didn't look for that specific information when I was looking for a school at which to study, because I did not give a single shit about it, okay? It didn't occur to me. Like, I wanted to do what you're doing, which is what I did. Like, that's what I was looking for at the New York Academy. I want to learn anatomy. I want to draw the naked people, and then that's what I want to draw. Like, I want to study the body. Like, that's what I wanted to do. And I was not thinking about anything else at all. And then I was like, I'll just apply to shows, and then that's it. That'll be the money. No organizational long-term planned out steps. So yes, if we could go into kind of like a bit of detail when it comes to like the transitional part, like how much did you save, for example? Not an exact amount, don't be super detailed in money. It's fine if it makes you uncomfortable.
No, not uncomfortable, but to move from there to New York City and live in Brooklyn, like it's into the six figures for sure that I had to save to like just live. I had to pay tuition, I have to pay my rent every month, my bills, buy art supplies and food, basically.
Yes.
Like that's basically it. So I had to save quite a bit for sure. Like to give some number to you, when I was in Sacramento before I moved to Los Angeles and I got like that job that started paying really well, I was barely able to pay my bills. And then COVID hit, I got laid off from my job in Sacramento. And then a week later, I got hired at this place in Los Angeles. Just magically, it was incredible. And that salary that they offered me was almost triple what I was making in Sacramento.
Okay.
So basically I went from barely being able to pay all my bills to having like this surplus of money when I moved down to LA and started working there.
Yes.
And so I really didn't spend much. I mean, I started door dashing a lot more, but that was basically it. Like I wasn't buying stuff, and just started saving. So yeah, I had to save, into the six figures into the low six figures to come here and do what I've done so far.
Okay, so I mean, for how many years, I guess, did you plan on having money saved for? And then how are you thinking of doing the transitional part then from being, a student to then hopefully being a full-time fine artist? I mean, did you have some kind of planning on that latter part, on becoming some kind of job, something fine artist money related type thing where you'll be able to drive? Yeah.
Totally, yeah. And luckily, I've met some really amazing artists within the Grant Central Atelier ecosystem that have given me guidance here. But basically, like, my plan was to start teaching as much as I could. So I've already taken on online students as a student, people who don't study full time. So making some extra income there. I have my first workshop coming up later this month. I have a portrait workshop in Connecticut, which is really cool. So with that said, and with some of the guidance that my peers have given me, is basically like, try not to rely on sales. I'm going to try not to rely on art sales to pay my bills, and hopefully have that be done by like teaching and workshops and maybe like online stuff. I don't know, perhaps a Patreon, or maybe like online workshops that I release and sell or something.
Like on demand.
So I guess the idea is just like hustle, try to teach as much as I can. And also, like you mentioned about on the business side of like marketing myself and trying to build relationships with collectors. Right now I have a handful of loyal collectors who have bought my drawings in the past, and it's just like, I feel so like honored and very stoked to have them, but it's just small. It's not like paying my rent level collection, but they definitely help out a huge amount.
I'll bet. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, no, that's really cool, and I hope that I also haven't talked about this very subject really that much with other people on the podcast. I mean, I kind of have touched it a little bit, but not really that much. But I don't know to what extent but I am definitely I've allowed myself to be a victim of the starving artist stigma. And it's kind of, for whatever reason, like, I don't know why it's there really to begin with. But I definitely let myself in the past, and sometimes still, like, kind of fall victim, just kind of like let myself be like, oh yeah, it's gonna be so hard or whatever, and it's like, yeah, it's gonna be hard just like everything else.
Totally. So any entrepreneurial thing is gonna be really hard.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so like
so
I'm definitely trying to be patient, but I mean, what I really meant to say with that is that hopefully, because so that's the other thing. It's like there have been and there are in the present lots of artists that work really hard, and they're able to not just sell their work, but they do just other art related things by which they derive money from the things they know and from the things they make. And I've been reading about the pre-Raphaelites, and there's this book that one of the founders, William Holman Hunt, wrote about the Brotherhood, and he really busted his ass to be able to make money and to make his way through the Royal Academy, and then afterwards to just make the work that he wanted to make and still make money. He would make commissioned portraits and other type, I don't remember what else, but he would make commissioned work, and he still made the work that he wanted to make, like personal work, what we would call, and I just think that kind of story doesn't get enough attention or credit or whatever, and like for whatever reason, the starving artist stigma is still there, bullying, I don't know, just being there, too much, it's too loud.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love stories like that. A lot of our favorite artists of the past were, I don't know what percentage, but a lot of them just were kind of like born into money and started studying really young. Um, and a lot of them are like some of my favorite artists. But I really like you said, I love the stories of the artists of the past that are still in the history books today who weren't born with money and had to like figure it out.
Sure, yeah.
Um, really interesting. I agree though that there is the idea of the starving artist, and the one I fall into is I find self promotion to be a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
So like I putting myself out there and being like, come take a workshop or sign up for my newsletter, it like feels so inauthentic to me.
Right.
And I think a lot of artists feel this way. Is it just
Sure.
it feels so a little bit cringe to be like, hey, come take my thing, or I don't know, come support me in this way, and it
Yeah.
feels really inauthentic. But I mean, this is kind of just what we signed up for. Like you have to wear a bunch of hats as an
Sure.
artist, and I think even throughout all of history, they've had to. You couldn't just most artists have never been able to just like create in their own little bubble in their own little void. Like I guess other than like Andrew Wyeth or some special cases, but
Outliers.
yeah. So
Um,
I think there is something to be said about the hustle, and that you have to really push yourself if you want to like make a living doing this. You're
Sure.
gonna have to be uncomfortable doing that kind of stuff.
So, why do you think the self promotion feels dirty?
That's such a good way to put it. It does feel dirty. I don't know why. I mean, I think there's a part of me that wants just like, hey, I'm making nice work. I'm working towards making nice work, and I want people to just like come to me. Like, there's this idea that maybe that making good work is all that it takes to somehow succeed, and that collectors will find you and your audience will find you if you make good work. But that's really just not the case. The most talented young and upcoming artists could be making just groundbreaking work, and if they're not getting eyeballs onto what they're making, then they're not going to have any success.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that's a very good question. Maybe it just feels, yeah, it just feels dirty. I guess I don't know. I'd have to think on that a little more. To me, it really just feels inauthentic. Like I'm not someone who likes attention. Like I don't like being the center of attention. So there's like a look at me quality to self promotion.
Right.
That's like, hey everyone, eyes on me, and that feels like super weird. I don't know. I've never been. That's why I like to be behind an easel, because if I wanted attention, I maybe would have tried to be an actor or like a
Sure,
musician
yeah.
or something where everyone's looking at you.
Yeah, yeah. I can see that. I've had more than one guest on the podcast who wasn't on camera, and I mean, if I started the recording and their camera wasn't on, I wouldn't be like, hey, I can't say it or something. And I was like, because I immediately made the assumption that they didn't want to be on camera. And like one person that I invited, her name is Maya Kalenovic. I love her work. I'd have to, anyway, whatever. The thing is that I wanted to have her on, and she was like, yeah, I do very little, whatever. I don't want to be on camera. And she's like, there's like 2 pictures of her on the internet, So then it's like, I mean, I think that's interesting about not wanting to give a face, quote unquote, to the work. And I think, I mean, does that seem about right in terms of, I mean, is that you don't want the, like maybe the work is kind of like a filter, or like the work will get the attention, you will not,
Yep.
or something.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like some weird, maybe subconscious psychological thing is like we all kind of crave attention even if we're
Sure.
introverted. So like the work is the way that I can like fulfill that kind of like maybe
It's like a buffer in a way.
I think so too. Yeah, that's an I've never thought about it before. I've never thought about it that way until you said it like that. I think that's true.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just give me a minute here, because I think I wanted to ask something else about this subject. I mean, but so do you think that your lack of desire of attention or for attention could also be to the detriment of the work, in the sense that then the work won't be getting the attention it deserves?
Totally. Yeah, I think so. I think if I was more comfortable with self-promotion and putting myself out there, then maybe it would have more, there would be more eyes on the work.
But yes, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's just that because of the buffer thing. Because I mean, I think it's kind of it seems like an interesting kind of analogy, like the buffers that they put on cars. Those are called bumpers. Anyway, that's tangential. But then you could still like if you don't post selfies or anything, you just post the work. For example, on social media, then the work is going to get all the attention it's going to deserve, and then you're not going to be the focus of that attention. The work is going to be. So then it's like, I mean, it's like a point of compromise, like when you, for example, if you apply for a gallery show or a solo show, it's the work that on which you're trying to get the attention, not yourself. Do you see what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with that. But I do think that the artists who maybe put their face out more or humanize themselves online, at least like through Instagram or wherever, like I do feel like I think the audience likes that. They like to see the face behind the art, and it helps them connect emotionally to the artist. So it's something I've been thinking about, and I'm still a student, but I've been thinking like maybe there's going to come a time where I have to be a little bit more of like the face of my art if I'm going to like go this route of having like some level of online brand. I think it would be at least worth contemplating, like maybe putting your face out there. Like my teacher and one of my mentors and artistic like idols is Colleen Berry. I'm sure you know her work.
Sure, yeah.
At some point she had like the same realization. For her, I think it was a lot later than when she was in school. I think her and her husband had already gone through all of their studies, like 4, 5, 6, 10 years of study before that she came to this realization. But she decided like she's going to start putting herself out there and not hiding behind her paintings. And I think she found that maybe she, like 10 years ago, she discovered what I'm discovering, is that just making good work isn't enough to like attract big galleries or big collectors that are going to pay your bills with their purchases. So yeah, there's going to come a time where I'll have to decide like which route I'm going to go. Like, am I going to put my face out there and be the face of my online brand, whatever that is, or not?
Okay. So let's start talking about art here, and I wonder if I can have your permission to. I wonder if I may I have your permission to read the thing you sent, the little bit you sent me on Instagram, so that we can talk about that.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
You have my permission.
Thank you for being patient with me saying all of that. Okay, let's see. So, okay. All right, so, quote, I've been thinking about the art question, and the more I think about it, the more it stumps me. I think I can only give you less of a definition and more of my own feeling towards art. My belief is that art is something created by a human being using both technical skill and their spirit, and its function is to inspire the viewer or listener to feel something like awe or inspiration. End quote. So, okay, I have questions. Mr. Garder. Why does thinking about what art is stump you, first of all?
It's just, I feel like anyone who's even like remotely intelligent or remotely educated on art could like rebut any definition I give. This is how I feel, is because to me it's so personal, and to me it's about feeling. That, I don't know, maybe I just feel like defining art is something that's been very difficult for people, even people much smarter than myself, like way smarter. So I thought I'd give my own personal take on it, and maybe not say that this is the definition, but it's just kind of like how I feel about art, is that make it a little bit more personal, because it's such a difficult thing to define and nail down.
Yes. Yeah, I think I would agree with you that it is something that stumps the person because and I wouldn't say, so tell me what you think about this. Like, I wouldn't say it's difficult by default. I would say that it has become difficult because of things that have happened throughout the history of art starting about just about 100 years with people getting angry about the wars and everything and being like getting all messed up with the two world wars, and then rightfully so, because those were fucked up events. And so they were like, nothing makes sense, everything is stupid, so is art. Whatever. The thing is that somehow it had a consequence on art, and well, it didn't start there either. But anyway, the thing is that I mean, do you agree with that? Do you think it has become difficult rather than because the Greeks knew, or the Renaissance people, they were like, art is this, So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think art, and throughout the history of art, like you mentioned, it started to become intellectualized and conceptualized. And it opened up beyond just like the idea of representing beauty, and it became something about over time became more about individualism,
Yeah.
self-expression, conceptual ideas. Yeah, and so that's why for me it's like it still is very much just about like a pursuit of beauty and what my definition of beauty. Yeah, I think over time the definition has definitely changed and the goalposts have moved, and it's to the point now where I kind of just don't even know like what to call art. Like how could you possibly define art when there's people like my mentor Jacob Collins creating beautiful representational figures to like someone taping a banana to a wall, and both of those are like, this is art, when they're so insanely different, and one takes a lifetime to be able to do and one takes like no skill to do. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel.
Okay. You said that makes no sense, right?
What's that?
You said that makes no sense.
Yeah, they're like two different things to me, like very different categories. I may be under like one really really vague umbrella definition of art. They're the same thing, but they're so different to me that it's hard to categorize them both the same, at least in my mind.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. Like, even, you may or may not agree with me, but the reason for which I started the podcast was for that very reason, that it's like, why is art like this? It's like, why? So it's like you said, it's a common expression lately, the goalpost is being moved because it's being moved for lots of things. And it's like, but for art, it's like, there's just no goalpost. It's just, there is none. It has disappeared. There's no goalpost. The term has become so diluted. It's like when you take you have a glass of water and you drop a single drop you put like a single crystal of sugar in it, and it's like, that's not sugar anymore. And it's still, because there's too much water. It is too dissolved for there to be any sweetness in the water. So like, there's no. You see what I'm saying? I find that extremely. Totally. I find that extremely frustrating, and it never. Yeah, it indeed never felt. It never felt right to me. Whereas before, I was much more tolerant of certain things, like the MoMA stuff.
Yeah.
This type of stuff, and it's like now I'm like, especially after talking with lots of people, it feels. I slowly become kind of like more confident in being like, no, that is not art, and it's like, so like, it's kind of becoming a little bit like slowly more cohesive, what it is and where it is and when it is not, and that certainly feels good. I will tell you that.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah. That's kind of why I framed the answer to you in that way, is like, I won't try to define it, but I'll just give you my feelings toward it, because for me it is a very specific thing, and it's not necessarily what's happening in the contemporary art space. Like, that does nothing for me. Like, I don't know. I look at contemporary art and it's never held my attention for longer than a few seconds,
Yeah.
Whereas I can look at something created by an old master or a current master, and I'm just like deeply moved by it, and for me personally, I think I've just always really admired skill. That's something that someone has like given themselves mind, body, and soul to like get good at something. I think there's something deep in the human psyche that when you see someone very skilled at something, it inspires awe and it inspires respect.
Right.
I think that's an evolutionary trait, and I just have that big time, you know? So that's why for me, I included the wording of that it's something made by a human with a combination of skill and spirit, you know, because I think those two things together are what make really beautiful art, is that someone who's taken the time to become skilled, the many years to become skilled, and then also someone who has a soul that wants to maybe express something, you know. When those two things combine, I think that's when you get the artists who transcend throughout history. You know, they have both. Because someone can just have a soul and they want to express something, and maybe they tape a banana to a wall and it makes headlines, but it's not really something that's very memorable. And then also someone can be really technically proficient at drawing or painting, and you can kind of look at it and feel like, man, there's just nothing behind it. Like it doesn't feel, I'm not necessarily moved by this technician, you know?
Right.
But when those two things combine, I really find that's when I'm at my most inspired with art, is when I feel the presence. Like Janis Joplin, to use a like visual artist example of that, like I find her to just be such a compelling artist because she was both of those things.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
You know, I had a guy named Robert Florzak on the podcast, and he was somebody that kind of gave me encouragement about something that, you know, you might agree with as well, about how visual art is visual, so for your eyeballs. You don't need anything else. You don't have to read the plaque with the little paragraph explaining the work. The work has to stand on its own because it's for your eyes. So upon looking at it, the visual of the works, the composition, you know, whatever, and what you're calling spirit, like all of that stuff should be able to talk on its own through the work itself. And like I think your usage of a musician, or, you know, a music example is really good, because I think that's a really good analog in general for that thing about visual art. Auditory art, or oral art for, you know, AURAL art, is a really good analog for that, because the perfect example is like if you like any song that is not in English or not in your mother tongue, if you know, first of all, you know when it's a song and you know when it's good. And it doesn't matter what the song is saying, quote unquote, right? Because like, I mean, I like lots of songs in Japanese, for example. And it's like, I will like mouth what I hear. Like I'll sing what I hear. I don't know. It's unlikely that I'm saying what they're saying because I don't know the words or whatever. But I still like the songs, and a person will still like the song, and what the song is saying is irrelevant because the song is good, you know? So yes, what do you think about that?
Yeah, really, really well said, I think. Yeah, I like the music example too as an analogy for visual art, because I think the equivalent, and not to just harp on contemporary art too much, or am I allowed to curse?
Yeah, do it.
Not to shit on contemporary art too much, although I do enjoy doing that.
It deserves to be shat on. It's fine.
Okay, cool. So like an equivalent of like just taping a banana to a wall, to use that example again, would be like someone buying a drum set and recording an album and just like smashing the cymbals and the drums randomly with no prior training, you know, and being like, I'm just expressing myself, this is art, and I need to be paid a lot of money for it.
Yes.
So my point is that you can hear the skill in music, like you can see the skill in art. You know, like you can hear, like listening to a symphony or listening to a Janis Joplin song, like listening to Bobby McGee by Janis Joplin, and like you can just tell that the whole band they're deeply skilled, and I don't know if there's ever been a better representation of a love song, or like at least an ode to a lover, than Bobby McGee, you know? So I really like the music analogy too. And a lot of artists of the past did too, like Whistler famously
Oh, really?
titled his paintings, Symphony in White, number one,
Nice.
and et cetera, because he loved that musical analogy too.
Nice. Okay. Did you know that Bobby McGee is a cover and that it's originally by Chris Christopherson? I have never heard that cover, but it's by that guy originally.
Wow. No, I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, okay, I got to
That's
go look that up.
yeah. Yeah, maybe do that and to corroborate because I actually haven't I could be wrong.
Okay.
I think I remember reading that it was. Anyway, okay, so you also said that art was something specific for you, but that you preferred to talk about I forgot. Just give me a minute.
Hmm.
Um, Kind of like your belief or your feeling about it rather than a more specific definition. Would you be comfortable with telling me what the specific definition is of what you think art is?
Um, yeah, I think kind of how I phrased it before, that I think it's something made by a human being. And for me, I think it needs to have that combination of skill and spirit
Okay.
to really for me to move me as a piece of art.
Okay.
That's the best way I could put it. And I think here's an important thing for me is I don't think art necessarily needs to make you think. I think
Right.
inspiring some sort of feeling inside you is way more important than having you conceptualize or think about anything. Like,
Yes.
does it make you feel awe or inspiration or like bring a tear to your eye or make you smile or something? Like, that's so much more important than, at least for me, than making you think about like some current political issue
Yeah.
or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's well, and I agree with you wholeheartedly with all of that. What do you mean with spirit in particular? And all right, just give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
So, I basically understand what you mean. I'm pretty sure that I understand what you mean, but spirit and the word soul, as much as I think I have the gist of it. I feel like soul would be used more often in, like, when I'm reading about the pre-Raphaelites or something, the Victorians talking when they're talking about when they're being critical of something or praising something, and they're like, it has soul, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm inclined to agree. I feel like I understand, but I don't think it has been explicitly not defined necessarily, but at least it's like, it's what does that mean, and what do you think it gives to the work of art that will, to again use like a vague term, will make it be alive.
Mm-hmm. God, what a fantastic question. Man, defining spirit is tough. 'Cause I don't know. I don't really want spirit or soul to have any type of like religious connotation. I just think
Sure.
human beings are really we're capable of such deep feeling. Like our emotions are they run so deep. Um, and we're capable of experiencing like a lot of emotional pain.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe there's something in that where you take someone who is able to feel so deeply, like their human experience is wrought with so much emotion and feeling, both good and bad, like really high highs, really low lows. And I think that just like does something inside of you. I don't know what it is. It's like some magical cocktail that makes you able to somehow communicate that to the outside world with enough training, with enough skill.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're able to somehow imbue all of your pain, all of your joy, and every emotion, everything that makes you human somehow into a piece that like let's say you're painting a portrait and you look at like an old Reynolds portrait or something, and you're just like, this just feels so alive to me. Like the eyes, I look in the eyes of this portrait and it's just, I feel the soul of this sitter, whoever she was or he was. So, maybe Reynolds was just a really deep feeler. I don't know. I think it has something to do with emotion and specifically like pain and joy and like our capacity for both.
Okay.
I wish I could express myself more clearly, but that's my kind of intuitive answer.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, and again, I agree because there's definitely something, some like portraits, because I like portraiture a lot. And for example, in my case, I don't know if this happens to you, when I'm drawing the figure, like if I have a nude model, it's like, that is, first of all, amazing that one can get to that, to be able to do that. But then I have the bad habit of like, all right, figure, sketch, and then I'll make the teeny tiniest portrait because I like portraiture so much that I'll just start focusing. I'll start gravitating towards the portrait and just develop it a ton, even though it's like super tiny because I'm drawing the entire figure. And I
Hmm.
consider that a bad habit because the point is to, what I mean to say is that the point is to try to study the whole thing, right?
Hmm.
But then, so I'm just saying that I like portraiture quite a lot. And it's obvious that some portraits are like we're musing about alive versus others, and I do wonder why that is and why indeed some of them have this alleged spirit that we speak of. And I mean, I agree that it doesn't strictly, like, I agree with what I think you were alluding to, which um, the spirit or soul doesn't strictly have to have a religious sort of connection, although I don't think that's a negative thing. But I do think there's kind of like a spiritual sort of thing that maybe isn't necessarily linked to a religion in particular. But like, again, I don't think that's a negative thing. And well, okay, so I think we should start talking about beauty now, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
And is it
Sure.
okay if now I read the what you were talking about, what you wrote to me about beauty on Instagram?
Yep.
Okay. So quote, for beauty, I always really liked the way Robert Henry described it in the book Art Spirit. He said that beauty is a sensation in the mind of the observer and that material beauty does not exist. End quote. So okay, so there's that word spirit again. Okay,
Yeah.
so you use the word inspiration and awe in relation to art. And then I think that kind of makes a connection with what we were talking about just now, like with the sacred, which is also arguably related to religion, sanctity, and holy things, and this type of stuff, which again is not a negative thing. And I don't think the religion thing is strictly necessary to have
Hmm.
that sanctity, sacred type stuff. So, um, all right, just give me a second. Do you think in the case of beauty that the experience invoked in the viewer, or arguably the artist as well, do you think that experience has to be strictly awe or inspiration, like in sort of like in a positive way? Do
Mm.
you think that's like the goal, or do you think that is superior to something that, like a Greek tragedy where the
Hmm.
god ate all of his sons or something, which is just like terrible, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Man, good question. I think the idea of beauty is just so, whoops, it's so strange to me. I tried reading a book called, I think it's called Beauty by Roger Scruton, and it was really,
He's
really
awesome.
intellectual. And
Yes.
okay, so you like Roger Scruton? I
Yes.
tried reading the book, and it's just, it was a little too intellectual for me at the time. Like, I don't, I'm not saying I'm dumb or anything, but I wouldn't describe myself as an intellectual. Like
Right.
I'm much more of like a feeler and just kind of I like where books take me emotionally rather than intellectually. So I'm gonna give it another try. I want to read it because it was recommended by a friend. But I think that idea of beauty is just uh, so difficult to tackle too. Just like defining art, like beauty is um, really difficult to nail down. But no, I don't think it has to be necessarily a positive thing. I think you're right. Like there's something really beautiful in a tragedy, and even in like death. Like it's there's life is beautiful because we die. Like
Yeah.
we get to enjoy. We cannot take life for granted, and we can enjoy our lives because we know it's like this roller coaster ends eventually. So I think inspiration and awe are great, but I don't think that's necessarily like, I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
But like the way that you were talking about death, which is lots of people argue that when it's depicted in art, it's like bad or whatever. I mean, if seeing work that has this theme of death, like the Vanitas, is it the Vanitas? The ones with the skull
Sure.
and the whatever.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or those
Hmm.
anyway, whatever. I mean, they're supposed to remind the viewer. I mean, the subject matter is supposed to remind the viewer, you're gonna die. Life is finite and whatever. This type of stuff. I mean, upon thinking about death, you remember that you're alive and that it's great that you're alive. So then, that is
Hmm.
arguably a positive sort of thing that was summoned in the viewer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well said. Yeah.
so yeah, so then maybe because that's something I wanted to say also. I completely agree with the beauty is a sensation in the mind, or like an experience, and not material beauty does not exist. And I mean, what I and well, tell me what you think about this. What I make of that part about material beauty not existing is that basically beauty is not something that you see. So, for example, we have the bad habit. I mean, humans, we have the bad habit of thinking that, oh, the beauty standards of society and stuff, whatever. And it's
Mhm.
because if a woman looks this way, she's gonna be beautiful. So like something about the eyes, about the way she looks, her appearance, and so that's not where beauty is necessarily. I mean, there are biologically there are things that whatever, but that's besides the point because it's so what I'm trying to get to is that the experience of beauty is consistent and very similar, if not the same, for everyone, basically. And I really like that idea because it is very unifying rather than
Mm.
separating. I mean, what do you think about that?
How is it consistent for everyone?
In the
Like
sense,
you say, it's
yeah, in the sense that the experience of beauty. So, what was the phrase you used? A sensation in the
oh, that
mind,
it's
a sensation in the mind of the observer. So, like the experience itself is very similar,
okay.
if not
Yeah.
the same, for everyone.
Yeah, that's interesting. Um, I totally agree. Even if they find if their opinions on what is beautiful is different, like they're
Sure.
still kind of experiencing the same feeling. Like this, like how would you describe the feeling of seeing something beautiful? Like what is that? How would you even describe that? Like it's kind of all encompassing. It's
Yes.
hard to even just say like, is it a loving feeling you have, or is it like um, is it like you're an appreciation? Like what is it? I don't know. But it's something universal. It's like this indescribable thing that all of us can feel, which yeah, it is unifying.
Yes. And those two things that you just said are definitely part of like for because I kind of thought you were asking me for a second, and it's I mean that's definitely kind of what I feel, and I mean I feel it, I feel something of the sort, something very similar, also gazing upon different sorts of things or reading, or experiencing whatever it might be. Because for example, I have experienced it when looking at flowers in the spring, just looking at the flowers, and I've also experienced it if I happen to walk upon a destroyed pigeon, for example, the dead pigeon. Like we were talking about death, for example,
Hmm.
and both in both occasions, I stop and spend time, and I mean also looking when I look at work that I very much enjoy, I stop and invest time, like I will spend time with the dead pigeon, with the flower, with the painting, and I just look at it. I observe it and contemplate it. And that's a word that Roger Scruton uses a lot. And I mean, I'm sure the other art people, use the word specifically contemplation. Because you're there kind of like looking at the thing, just being with the thing, staring at it and observing it. Or, I mean, does that sound familiar? Is it similar? What would you say?
Yeah, totally. I think you're describing one thing that's like full of life and one thing that's a little bit not. It's definitely not full of life, like a
Sure.
destroyed pigeon. You can still somehow experience the same level of whatever of beauty with those two very different things. I think it's a really interesting, and I think it shows um, the complexity of human beings and like we have a darkness and we have a light inside of us, and I think the more that we can like recognize the two, the fuller of a life experience we can all have, I think, is like fully expressing both of those sides of us as well.
Okay. Um, so I guess just one more question.
Sure.
Why why do you think, or why do you agree with Robert Henry's? By the way, I have not read that book yet. Anyway, but why do you agree with his argument that material beauty does not exist, and what does that mean? Oh, I mean, I kind of talked about it a second ago, but what do you understand from that, and why do you agree with it?
Um, Man, I really really love that book. First of all, I highly recommend reading it. It's a wonderful read.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I think he prefaces that statement with the first part, which says just a sensation on the mind of the seer
Mm-hmm.
or the observer, or
Mm-hmm.
however he phrases it. And I feel like that just makes so much sense to me that it's a personal thing, and like I can see, I can like look on my mom and my stepdad and see them like, they're in their 70s and they're like flirting with each other, and I find that to be like really cute and like beautiful, whereas someone else might see that as really innocuous or like uh, boring or pay no attention to it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's something that I'm experiencing that I see and I'm like, this is beautiful. Like these people are in their 70s, still married and still in love. Like that's a fucking amazing thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's beautiful to me. Um, so I think the reason I agree with it is I just think that beauty is really personal. I do agree that maybe when you're looking at human beings and like in terms of like attraction, there are some biological markers that we're kind of programmed to find beautiful. Like men are programmed to see certain traits on women and vice versa, and
Mm-hmm.
we kind of have an unconscious response to that and
Mm-hmm.
say, "Wow, beautiful."
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then there are other examples like the one I just described about my mom and my stepdad that are like super subjective. So I think it's that universal experience that we all have that is unique to each of us.
Okay. All right, so Mr. Garter, we have broken the 50-minute mark of our conversation here, so I'm going to start to close it out. Is there anything that you would like to add? Where can people find your work? Do you have any projects coming up? Anything that you're excited about that these workshops and classes and things that you should
Sure.
be promoting?
Cool. Yeah, I totally should. First of all, thanks for having me.
Sure.
I've seen your work since I started back in 2018, like trying to learn to draw. Your account was one of the first ones I found. Um, and I remember seeing some self-portraits that you did that were just like unbelievable to me. So, known you for a long time, and it was a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise.
Secondly, yes, I have a workshop coming up later this month. Not sure when this one comes out, but in late June this month, I have a workshop in Connecticut, a 3-day portrait workshop that there are still some spots available for that. So you can go to Weathersfield Arts on Instagram or Scott Garder Art on Instagram if you want to maybe check that out. That's also where you can find where I post most of my work. My website is scottgarderart.com. That's where my figures go because I can't post nude figures on Instagram anymore. So all my figurative work just lives on my website. I also have a newsletter you can sign up for on my website, scottgarderart.com. And then lastly, I'll just say there's a show coming up in late August at this place called Willow, Vermont.
Okay.
It's a figurative show, kind of focusing on people within the GCA, Grand Central Atelier ecosystem, current students and graduates as well. We're really excited about it. We're going to have some really great work, so you can check that out too. I'll be promoting that on my website, my newsletter, and my Instagram too.
This show, is it in New York?
No, it's going to be in Vermont. It's
Yeah.
at this
Okay.
really beautiful retreat out in Vermont called Willow. It's run by two fantastic people, Tom and Ravi, who are like obsessed with this type of work and collect it, and really wanted to use the space that they have out in Vermont, which is like really beautiful and rural. And last year we
Nice.
had a show. This year we're doing it again, but it's going to be even bigger this year. So really excited about it.
Okay. Okay. Nice work promoting those things. Okay. So,
Thank you.
all right. So I'm going to start closing it out today, Scott.
Okay.
Thank you very much for talking with me today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you want to support Scott and my podcast, you can do so through the links in the video description. So thanks, everyone, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye.
Thank you.